It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Geoff Alexander, President and CEO of Wow Bao. Geoff joined Chicago-based Let Us Entertain You Enterprises back in 1993, straight out of college, and following his work on multiple concepts within their portfolio, he took over the company's Asian concept, Wow Bao, in 2009. A pioneer in both technology and social media, Geoff redefined the fast casual space by implementing mobile ordering, self-ordering kiosks, bicycle delivery, and nationwide shipping. Geoff has overseen Wow Bao's inclusion into airports, major sports stadiums, university campuses, music venues, and with groceries around the country now selling Wow Bao's frozen retail line. Shortly after being named in both Nation Restaurant's News Power list and most influential restaurant CEOs in the country, Geoff changed the game in the restaurant industry once again by creating Wow Bao Now, launching more than 500 Wow Bao Dark virtual kitchens in more than 400 cities in less than 18 months during the pandemic. Geoff Alexander, welcome into the corner office.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, wonderful to have you here. And we always like to kind of kick off with, the early days. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your early family life was like.
Thank you for asking. So born and raised in New York City, Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Nice.
Went to a small, miss it every day. Went to a small private school on the Upper West Side from 1st through 12th grade. So graduating class of 42 people. And what was nice about that was, I was never the new kid. It was a great place to grow up. And we had a summer house on fire. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. So brothers and sisters, and
I had an older sister, and we had a summer house on Fire Island off the coast of Long Island where I really started working. I worked from a very young age, from paper boy selling seashells to, in the grocery store as a delivery boy, stock boy, and that's really where I learned my work ethic.
Yeah. And what about mom and dad? What did they do? What was it?
Dad was a school teacher. He passed away when I was 8 years old, and mom was really, the stay-at-home mom until she was forced to get back into the workplace. And she then
she pretty much grew up. She brought up you and your sister then.
My sister was born mentally handicapped, and when I was 12 years old, 4 years after my father passed, she was put into a home. So it was really just my mother and I, and we had a great relationship, very protective of each other because of the circumstances of how we did. But my mother really let me sort of be my own person and experience my own things. And in fact, she pushed me to go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison because she said, A, it was a hot school for New Yorkers, but B, it was far away. And she wanted me to, be able to spread my wings and not have to worry about her and discover my own. And went there for 4 years after high school and managed a restaurant bar for 3 years while I was in college. Shout out to State Street Brats. And
hopefully some of theirs listening. Is that the first time you got involved in the restaurant business, or did you encounter some of that earlier on in your entrepreneurial activities?
Yeah, that was the first with restaurants, but I've been around food. As I said, I worked in the grocery store in Fire Island. I worked in a gourmet grocery store in New York City in high school. So I'd always been around food. I don't cook. I actually burn water. But once you get in the hospitality business and you get that buzz and that you get bitten by the bug
Can't shake it.
regarding it. You can't get out
Can't
of it.
shake it. Yeah.
It's
You guys are a unique class. There's no question. As you know, I've had some of your friends and colleagues on the show, and everyone has that same sort of burning desire and just that hospitality presence, right? I mean, it really does take a commitment to people and the environment you're in. What do you like best about the hospitality industry?
Yeah, I think it's changed over the years for me. I think when I
Yeah.
started out, what I really loved about it was just the social aspect, right? I worked at the fun bar on campus, and I would, you know, everybody wanted to know me to get into the bar when they were underage, and it was a fun environment, right? And then
Right.
when I got into the restaurants after college with Let Us Entertain You, I was working at Shaw's Crab House, which is one of the premier seafood houses in the country, and this the social aspect of it, and
Right.
you know, I wasn't behind a desk 8 hours a day looking at a computer screen. Every day was different. Every day was just about, how can people come out to eat, and we are surrounded by food to celebrate and to commiserate. And you are part of people's lives, right? I
Right.
mean, when
Right.
something great happens, you need to have food there. When God forbid something bad happens, people bring food. It's the
Yeah.
comfort of it. So to be
Yeah.
in an environment where you are adding to their joy or trying to create joy, it's just a different
Different experience. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
And every day is different, and everyone you're dealing with is different. So
Right.
it was just
Right.
exciting. And the fortunate part that I had with Lettuce Entertain You, Lettuce is a privately held restaurant group that started in 1971 by Richard Melman. We've created over 250 different concepts in the last 51 years. Currently, I think we're about 160 restaurants and 62 different concepts. For me, over my 29 years now, and up until I joined Wow Bao in '09, so for me, I was on multiple different concepts. It was almost like every 2 years I had a new job because I worked with different people in a different building with a different cuisine,
Right. So
and
the
it's still the
constant
same
change of it.
company. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it keeps it keeps the juices flowing, right? Especially there was a number of concepts that I worked on where I built it from the ground up, where I hired the entire staff, designed the entire menu, came up with the menu creations with the chefs, the decor elements of it. I did that on 4 or 5 different concepts. So you are giving birth to a place that people are going to come to, and it's just so exciting for me to
Yeah.
have been part of that.
Well, let's rewind a little bit because I want to kind of get to some of the roots of that and, what maybe were some of the inspirations that you got from that or, that you attained either as a child or in school. So were you a good student in school? Was that something that entertained you or was that something
I,
that you just kind of got
yeah,
through
I
your
sort
later
of I
years?
sort of got through it. I mean, look, I was a pretty good math student up until calculus came along. I think it's more about I was a solid B minus C student. There were a couple of places here where I probably did better. And, I remember my first class in college, I went from a graduating class of 42 students, right? So every
Right.
class I had was 18 people. My first class in Madison was a 400 person psychology
Golly.
class.
Right.
And it
Right.
was all multiple choice, Scantron. And growing up, I did everything essays, and
Right.
I could meet
Right.
with the teacher and talk things through. And here I am just listening to someone talk and then having to memorize it and write fill out Scantron. I think I got an F in the class, you know.
Just
But
to intrigue you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Were there
But
other activities? Were you involved in sports and
oh, sure,
other
thank
outside
you.
things?
Yeah, I was on the swim team from 5th grade through senior year,
Ah,
baseball team in
cool.
high school,
Yeah.
basketball team in 7th, 8th grade. I mean, I've always been a sporty guy. I'm
Right.
a social butterfly and interested in sports. And, like I said, by being in the school from first through 12th grade, and never being the new kid, I knew everybody.
Right.
And then
Right.
working in a bar in college, I knew, I want to say I knew everybody, but I knew everybody's fake ID name. So when I meet people now, they're like, "Oh, you graduated the same year as my friend Andy." I'm like, "Was his name John, maybe?" Because
Yeah, show me
I
his
didn't,
face. I might be able to recognize him.
I didn't know him as Andy.
I
Uh,
love it. I love it. Well, you
so
mentioned a lot of entrepreneurial things growing up. What was the goal at the time? Were you, saving money for college? Did mom say that was part of the deal, or did you have some vices that you explored? Where did all those funds go to during those years?
yeah, that's a fun question. So for me, work wasn't about making money. Work was about I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed having responsibility, and I
Right.
enjoyed being dependable, and for me, my career has never been about getting a raise every 6 months and getting a promotion and a title change. My work ethic has always been, how can I make the job easier
Yeah.
for the next person and for my boss? And
Right.
that sort of
Right.
is what has been fueling me. And that's why I worked at a young age. And did I get paid? Sure. What did I blow it on? Let's go. I worked in the grocery store. So at the end of the shift, let's go hit the candy aisle. Let's go buy
Right.
some ice cream and some chips for all my friends. And, who needs a 6 pack of soda? Until I got of age, then it was okay. We bought other things. But, you know, uh, uh, what I really did, before my father passed on Fire Island, we had at the firehouse, the community firehouse, every Wednesday night was movie night. I mean, they move all the fire trucks out and they set up the old movie projector and
Ah,
they'd show
cool.
old movies. So I
Yeah.
started working there at the age of 8, right? When I say I was working there, it was like I'd set up chairs, right? And then the next
Right.
year I
Right.
ran the popcorn machine, and the next year I sold sodas, and then I worked the front door. Well, when I turned 13, I had been doing it for 5 years. My father now had been gone for 5 years. I actually was running the movie theater. Somebody else would come
Cool.
and move the fire trucks out of the way. I obviously couldn't drive, but I was the guy who opened it up, set it all up, and tore it all down at the end of the day. And it's just
Nice.
sort of been embedded in my DNA to
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
hard. And
Yeah.
people talk about retirement one day for me. I'm like, I don't think I could ever sit around and you know
Well, what
not
I
get my
hear
hands
too
dirty.
is service. It sounds like you were very service oriented. Whether you're buying chips and soft drinks for your friends or setting up the chairs and creating that environment. That always kind of floated your boat, right? You enjoyed kind of creating those environments.
Yeah, when you run a restaurant, setting up for the before the shift starts, you're setting your house, so to speak,
Right.
for a
Yeah.
party, right? You set the lights, you set the music, you make sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to be, and then you open the doors and invite your guests in. It's funny
Yeah.
because in my actual home life, I have party in my house phobia, right? Because I get everything set in my house and people show up, I'm like, please leave. But at the restaurant, I want to entertain. And to your
Right.
point of your
Right.
question, growing up, it was always about wanting to have fun, and I wanted
Yeah.
everybody to have fun. And to a degree, probably, my therapist would say that I wanted to be the center of attention and be the guy who was remembered about having fun. So I bought all the snacks and made sure everyone had what they
Yeah.
needed. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's always about, the comfort level of other people. And to your
Yeah.
point, hospitality.
Yeah. And entertaining others. I love it. Well,
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about how, you know, uh, a New York City kid adjusted to Madison, Wisconsin. Well, I got to tell you that's got to be a big cultural shift. What
uh,
was that first, semester
well,
like?
the first year, so my first day in college, I had a single in the dorm. And, when you move into college, they put up on the outside the door your name and where you're from.
Right.
Well, I'm unpacking in my dorm and people kept walking by and like looking and then scurrying away. And finally, this guy across the hall came into my room. He said, "Okay, I'm going to come in." I go, "All right, like, sure." He's like, "Well, no one else will." He goes, what's in your trunk?" I go, "I don't understand your question." He goes, "Do you have guns and knives?" I go, "What are you
Oh my
talking about?"
gosh.
He's like,
Oh
"Well, you're from New
God.
York." I'm like, "Oh my God," like culture
Total
shock, right?
stereotype. Yeah.
Right, 100%. He's from small town Minnesota, this guy. Now, I look,
Sure.
Madison's a fantastic campus, an
Mm.
unbelievable education, and a great social life. Everything about Madison was great. I loved
And you
it my
stuck it
freshman
out. You
year.
you stayed there 4 or 5 years,
Yeah,
right?
4 years,
Yeah.
4 years,
Yeah.
had to get out in
Yeah.
four. But I loved it
Right.
my freshman year. My sophomore year, I got the job in the bar, which was fantastic. My junior year was I moved up at the bar from, prep cook, grill cook, whatever, to bartender. And I
Right.
enjoyed junior year. My senior year, I was like, I have to get out of here. Like, I've walked the main street now, God knows how many thousands of times the last 3 years. But I stayed 2 summers there because the summers are beautiful after the winter snow. The summers, you're on two lakes. I mean, it's just a beautiful, gorgeous campus.
Right.
And I had met a girl who was a year older than me. So when I was a junior, she was a senior. She was from Ohio, and after her graduation, she did not want to go to New York, and I refused to go to Ohio. So she
Mm.
did Chicago so we could stay close. So upon my graduation, I moved to Chicago both for her and for the job.
Yeah.
Uh, which Chicago is a great city. It's a younger, cleaner, more manageable New York. I do miss New York every day.
Right.
Unfortunately, my mother passed away in 2000, so I don't really
Mm,
have any family back in New York.
right.
But my friends are all there, and I still consider New York home. My wife, it's my second wife now. We've been married for 15 years. Uh, she reminds me every day that I've been in Chicago longer than I was ever in New York.
And you never left. So you literally moved to Chicago after Madison. You've been there ever since.
Yeah, in '93. So after
That's rare for a New Yorker. That's very rare for New York.
it's been a great career for me, and now
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
fantastic family, a son, and my daughter has graduated from grad school, and she's joining social work, group therapy for kids. So we're all homebound here in Chicago now.
I love it. And you've pretty much been with the same company since you graduated. So tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about how you met Lettuce Entertaining You and how that all started.
thank you. So when I would visit Chicago to on the weekends, because as I said, my first wife, the girlfriend at the time, was living here, we would eat out because that's what you do when you visit. And after the
Sure.
fourth restaurant, we learned they were all the same company.
Mm.
So I applied for a management job, came down to meet with one of the presidents of one of the divisions of Lettuce, and he couldn't meet with me because he didn't have time for the interview. He was running late, so he had passed me off to one of his people. And then I found out they passed on me for a job, and I thought that was unfair since I didn't meet with who I was supposed to. So I came back down for another interview, and I was offered a position as a host or server for a year, and then they would consider me for management.
Mm.
And I loved the company. I loved what they were doing. So I said, sure, let's go. And on my first day of work, they talked to me about my management benefits, and I did not correct the guy whatsoever.
What was that first franchise or the first
I
vision you
spent
worked at?
3 weeks at a restaurant called Mighty Nice Grill, which was inside the
Okay.
Water Tower shopping mall. And then three
Right.
weeks later, I got really moved to Shaw's Crab House, and I was there for 2 years. And then in '95, I joined Big Bowl, which at the time was an 1,800 square. So I went. Shaw's Crab House is a 18,000 square foot high end seafood restaurant. It's two restaurants in one, the main diner and the
Wow.
oyster bar. And it was a fantastic environment to grow up and learn. From casual dining on the oyster bar side to full service team service on the dining room side. And then I joined Big Bowl. It was an 1,800 square foot, like 20 seat restaurant. Total culture shock from
Hmm.
seafood, which I grew up eating, to Asian noodles. But Big Bowl took off. And
Yeah.
over time, we grew over the next few years until 2001. We grew 8 restaurants. I became an area director overseeing all the GMs of all the locations. And it was sold to Brinker International down in Dallas, who owns
Right.
Chili's, Macaroni Grill, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to go with the transition. I wanted to stay with Lettuce. So I joined, at the time, we had a restaurant called Vong, which was part of John George Vonger Richten out of New York. We partnered with him and ran the Chicago location. There were 5 of them around the world: Hong Kong, London, New York, and so on. And reconcepted that into Vong's Thai Kitchen. And then from there, I worked at Tucci Benucci, which was a 20-year-old Italian restaurant of ours, closed that and reconcepted that to Frankie Scalapini. And then I worked on over to Wow Bao in
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah. Well, we want to talk about Wow Bao in a bit, but I want to get a little more in detail in some of those early experiences. So you get the briefing the first day. They're obviously putting you into the management program. Did you get management responsibility right away?
Oh yeah, well there's a 13-week management training program.
Okay.
So
So
I was in
they put
training
you into that.
immediately. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
remember it was 2 weeks later in the middle of a busy lunch shift, and I walked up to the partner in charge of the restaurant. I said, "What am I getting paid?" Because no one had told me anything.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
you won't believe how much money I was making. I was like, I hit the jackpot in 1993. I was paid $24,000 a year.
Oh my
I
gosh.
couldn't have
Wow.
been happier, man.
Yeah.
called my girlfriend, called my mother. I said, "You'll never guess what." Um, so, but I was really just basically a host for 3 weeks
Sure.
at Mighty
Got it.
Nights before they moved me over to Shaw's Crab House, and that's where the training program really did. And the Lettuce
Yeah.
training
Yeah.
program is you work every position in the house from dishwasher up to floor
Wow.
manager during those 13 weeks.
I
It's
love
5
that.
weeks.
I love
Yeah,
that about hospitality in the restaurant business. Too many
it's
companies don't do that, right?
yeah.
They should do every job in the organization.
Well, you do 5 weeks in the front of the house: busboy, back waiter, server, food runner, right? Hostess, manager.
Yeah.
bartender, barback, and then you go to the back of the house and you start as a dishwasher, and then you work every line position up until you're working the position with the chef. And then from there, you work 2 weeks in the office or 3 weeks in the office, learning all the financials. And it's very detailed. And look, it creates empathy for the employees. You understand what their job does, because on a very busy night when they're, killing them in the back, you appreciate it more because you had to sweat it out with them. And,
and you've done it before too. So, when that key person doesn't show up, guess who gets to do that job?
Exactly.
Right.
It's also camaraderie, right? You create relationships with all of these employees on a trust factor, on a level that doesn't really happen. So now they know who you are. You know something personal about them. And that's what's beautiful about Lettuce. It's a large company. We're 7,000 employees or something, but it's a family. I mean, it's family owned. Rich Melman and his family still are extremely active in it. And there's, I think we're up to close to 80 partners now in the company. But
is it first generation family, second generation?
So Rich founded it, and now his son RJ is the president. And his other son Jared and daughter Molly are both involved also.
Starting to transition.
So,
That's so cool. That's so cool. So you finished that training program, and then did they put you in as assistant manager?
So thank you. I don't mean to interrupt you. They in the Lettuce world, you have a general manager, then they're numbered. You have a general manager, a number 2, a number 3, and a number 4. Not everyone has 4 levels of management. So it depends on the size of the restaurant. But I started as a number 4 manager, so I was in charge of the dishwasher schedule and all the supply ordering for the restaurant, as well as running the oyster bar at nighttime. Yeah. And then after 6 or 8 months, they made me number 3 manager. And eventually I was in charge of all the liquor buying. And then when I transitioned over to Big Bowl, they made me number 2. And now I was in charge of all schedules and food buying. Then we opened up another Big Bowl location. I became the general manager for that one.
Nice.
Which is all aspects of the restaurant.
So going back to maybe that first management responsibility where you started managing people, what were some of the key challenges that you had, or did you not have any? Did you kind of just fit in and felt like a glove from the very beginning?
So we have this thing called breakfast meetings where every 6 months, the team, the entire restaurant staff is invited. No salary people are allowed there. It's all workers, employees, hourly employees. Me with the head of HR and a partner from a different division. And it's a chance for them to give constructive feedback. It's not a bitch session, but it's a way to communicate about what's going on. And I remember my first breakfast meeting and the feedback I got. And I heard, Geoff, they love you. You're very supportive. You're there whenever they need you. You're always on the floor. But
waiting for the but. Yeah.
Right. Every time someone walks up to you in the middle of the shift, the server comes up to you and says, can you comp this dish on table blank? You do it for them and they appreciate it, but you always ask them why. Like, can you buy the calamari off of table 20? Well, why didn't they like it? And the server doesn't know why they didn't like it. They just know they didn't like it. And they're busy. Like, just comp it. Don't ask them questions. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, of course I'm going to comp it. I'm just standing at the computer with you and I'm making conversation and I'm a brash New Yorker. Like, what do you mean they didn't like it? I thought it was great.
Yeah, exactly. So, but also you want to know why. You doing your research, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's important. I wasn't even doing my research. I wasn't doing it because I really cared. I was doing it more because I'm a brash New Yorker. That's what we do. Like we ask questions and we say everything sarcastically. So it was a real eye opener to me about the Midwest, right? Yeah, the Midwest, people working, they're busy and they just want what they want. And as our saying is, we are slaves to our employees, right? We are there to give what our employees need. And here I was fighting them on the power.
You're challenging it. Yeah. Well, exactly. and again, to that Midwestern culture, of course, they're only asking it because they didn't like it. Right. And we have to do this for them because there would be no reason why they would tell us to comp it if they didn't.
Yeah. I'm just going to, a side story here because we're talking about the Midwest culture and my New York brashness. So in 2004, I opened up 7 Asian kiosks inside Byerly's and Lund's grocery stores in Minnesota. Now, Byerly's and Lund's grocery stores are carpeted and chandelier. These are beautiful high-end grocery stores.
Wow.
And I would remember I would work, 14-hour days inside the grocery store. And at the end of the day, I'd want to buy like a bag of chips and a soda to go back to my hotel room because I'm exhausted. And I've been in the grocery store all day long. So they know who I am. And I
Right.
get online at the cash register to leave, and the person at the register asks the customer how their day is going. Now, in New York, it's that you just say hi to people like, hi, how's your day? And everyone's like, and they move on,
Yeah.
right? In
Right.
Minnesota,
Right.
they want to know. So
Yeah.
the customer in front of me was online for 20 minutes just talking to the cashier. And all I want to do is go home,
Get your chips
right?
and your soda and get
So
out of
and
there.
then it's my turn. And again, I've seen this person all day long, and they ask me, "How's your day going?" And I can't not tell them now because they're Minnesota Midwest.
Right.
So
Right.
I still to this day I'm still probably more New York than Midwest.
Oh God, I love it. I love it. All right, so on to general management, and what was that first general manager job? Was it with
It
the
was a
Cup
big
Shack?
bowl. It was
Yeah,
a
it was a big
no.
bowl.
It was a
Okay,
big bowl. It
right,
was we opened up a restaurant in downtown Chicago. We went again. The first one was 1,800 square feet. This
right.
one was 5,000. So we needed to hire a staff of 40, and I was a part of the hiring process. Uh,
Now, was that a
uh,
new concept that had already
it
existed, or were
was
you coming
concept. No,
into a
it was store two of the concept.
store too? Okay, kind of
hmm
early days. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I ran that store from 96 when it opened until 1999. And
Wow.
during that time, we opened a couple of other stores that I was involved with as my development was growing, involved in construction and mentoring. And everyone who worked at the next stores to come came up through me, right? Because
Well, now,
they
just to
used
get
me
the
for
dates
training.
right, 96 would only been about 3 years out of college, so you're in your mid 20s, right, at that
Yeah,
time.
I am. I
Yeah,
am. Thank
yeah,
you for knowing that. Yep.
yeah.
Uh, Yeah, so it was because in that building, in the basement of that building, we made our corporate office for Big Bowl because the plan
Right.
was we were growing more of these. So I had the president of the division, the two vice presidents, and the head of culinary all in my building now, which was
Wow.
great to be part of their meetings. At the same time, you have four different people who are very opinionated about how that lunch shift should be running, right?
Right.
So
And
it
you're
taught
all
me
sitting very close to each other.
yeah. So I had an unbelievable education in learning things, but at the same time, I also had an education in how to finesse different people's opinions,
Right.
right? With making
Right.
sure they all felt like they were heard and valued.
Yeah. Yeah. Important. Yeah. Cool. And what were some of the other lessons you learned in that first general management job?
When you become a general manager, it's a different level of responsibility because you have to
Right.
hire, you have to schedule, and you have to really be the therapist for every employee.
Exactly. Right.
I mean, look, everybody has problems.
Right.
Everybody has issues. Some people have subscriptions, but they all have things that are going on with them in their personal life. And the restaurant industry is generally one of two kinds of people: a career-long restaurant person or a first job
Yeah.
as you're in school or you're finding your way and you're waiting for that other career to take off. So
Right.
there's turnover and you make relationships and friendships and they leave.
Yeah.
Or, you're dealing with young people who, are struggling financially or, come from sometimes from a home life that isn't stable
Right.
or, they look to you to solve all their problems.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it is
Because
a
it's
major
really a family. It's an
responsibility.
extended family.
Exactly.
I grew up with friends that worked at the Chart House and Chuck's. I was a West Coast kid, and I remember them talking about kind of their brothers and their sisters. Like, what? Your family, right? Well, no. I mean, yeah, it's kind of my restaurant family. Did you
Yeah,
feel that as well? Was it kind of an
100%.
extension of that?
Well,
Yeah.
partly
Yeah.
I think that's the restaurant business, and the other part of it is that is how lettuce created its culture.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there are
Right.
employees at what Shaw's Crab House opened in 1984. There are still employees who work there at opening day. I
Wow.
mean, that
Fabulous.
type of a place, right? Because it is all we are run on emotion. A
Yep.
lot of restaurant companies out there are run on financial, dictates everything. And lettuce is, I'm proud of the fact that we run on emotion. Look, we've gotten better on running on some financial, right? There's
Right.
definitely a responsibility to be financially sound. But running on emotion is what makes a family stick together and makes
Absolutely.
people feel
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we went through 9/11 together. We
Right.
went through the market crash in '08 together. We've gone through COVID together. I
Yeah.
mean, and when I say gone through it together, it's these people who you've worked with for years, if not decades, who you're checking in with regularly, who are checking in with you. There are people, I mean, people saw my daughter. I used to bring her in the baby carrier in the early days of life, and now they've seen her grow up and graduate from grad school,
Yeah.
employees of
Yeah.
mine.
It's really kind of an interdependence, isn't it? There is kind of that reliance on other folks and extended family in many ways.
And the guest who comes, right? You've seen people who came in on their first date who are now sending their kids off to college, and
Yeah.
they've come to
Yeah.
your restaurant during all that time. I mean, again, look, I hate talking about 9/11 because we all have our stories about it, but Big Bowl and VTK, I was actually opening VTK the day that it happened, but Big Bowl was a place that everyone just came to. It was a neighborhood restaurant, and you
Right.
went there to feel connections.
Right.
And, that is what restaurants do for a lot of people. As I said
Yeah.
earlier, we commiserate and we celebrate around food. And it's not just the food. The food tastes better because of the way the people are who are working there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Tell us about some of the mentors you've had over the years, Geoff.
I've had about, I recently did a keynote speech in March at an event, and I spoke for 45 minutes about mentorship, and mentorship is
Mm.
very important to me. I have 8 solid mentors in my life.
Mm.
Uh, Frank and Bobby were the owners of the grocery store that I grew up on doing when I was a kid up through 19.
Yeah.
I had Kelly, Sandy, and Terry, who were the owners of State Street Brats for my 3 years in college.
Right.
Rich Melman, the founder of Lettuce, Kevin Brown, who's now the CEO of Lettuce, who was the partner who hired me out of college, and I followed him throughout my career and worked with him hand in hand.
Yeah.
I have John Shulkin, who's with the private equity firm that now has controlling interest of Wow Bao. I have my wife, Lori, who's my rock and keeps me grounded. And then I have
Mm.
my therapist, David, who just, helps me find the insight that I need to
Yeah.
go. And those 8 people have shaped me for years, each of them. And
What's
unfortunately,
the common thread? What would you say is the common thread through all 8 of those folks?
I think that every single one of them has taken me in. Right? It's not
Yeah.
just like they hired me and they just taught me how to, do this or do that. I mean, there has definitely been a feeling of personal connection that has allowed me to screw up
Yeah.
and be accepted for screwing up. And every one of them has not been afraid to kick me in the butt when I've needed it. And none of them have been afraid to praise me when I've deserved it. They've
Right.
not held back. I shouldn't say afraid, but they haven't held back the praise when it's been, the accolades are needed. But every one of them is, they've all given me something different.
Yeah.
If anyone has one mentor, I feel sorry for you because there's so much more inside of you to be unlocked,
Right.
and you need to be
Right.
exposed to more people. And uh, uh, when you grow, and look, having kids has given me a different perspective on it.
Sure.
But, you know, my son, who's almost 12 years old, will listen to me about certain things and will not listen to me about other things, right? Because I'm the dad. And when you have mentors around you, you want to listen to some pieces from this person and you want to listen to some pieces from those person. But in hindsight, all the pieces came from everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about Wow Bao. So, new concept, and we spoke a couple of weeks ago, and it's a very different approach to restaurants and restaurant management. So give us kind of the inspiration for the creation of Wow Bao and how it's run today.
Okay, so in 1997, give or take, we did a tasting for Rich Melman. Our chef partners did a tasting for Rich, and they gave him bao. Bao is a soft, sweet dough with meat and vegetables inside. They're about the size of a tennis ball. Thousands of years in Asia, we did not create bao. But we did a tasting for Rich. In the middle of the tasting, he paused and he said, we could do a whole concept just selling these. And Rich files things away. And fast
Right.
forward to 2002, Water Tower Place shopping mall in the center of Chicago offered Let Us Entertain You a space to sell gift cards during the holidays. right at the front entrance. And we sell a lot of gift cards at the holidays. And after the holidays, they asked Lettuce if we wanted to keep that location and turn it into something. Well, there's no ventilation in there. It's the heart of the mall, right?
Right.
And Rich remembered Bao, this concept, and all it is steam, and steam dissipates after 10 feet. You don't have to run a lot of HVAC to get your steam out of the building. And so we built the first Wow Bao and opened in 2003, 354 square feet. And then in '07, we opened 2 more locations, a little bit larger. 2,200 and 1,800 were the 2 locations. It extended the menu. And then I took it over in '09 when there was 3 stores. And the first thing I did was really got involved with technology for the concept. In 2010, we added self-ordering kiosks. And at the time in 2010, there was only movie theaters to get your tickets, ATM machines, and airports were using self-ordering kiosks. Now it's sort of commonplace, right? McDonald's has it and all these places have it, but no one had it in 2010. We did desktop ordering. Again, sounds like no big deal for generations grown up with everything on their phone, but no one was doing desktop ordering back in 2010. We had an app in the App Store. There was only 300,000 apps. And then we got involved and started opening up some more brick and mortar. We became the first Lettuce concept to open in an airport, first Lettuce concept to get involved with college campuses. And then we started doing sports stadiums. And in 2017, Valor Equity Partners took a majority stake to fund our growth. And then we got involved in a virtual kitchen out in LA. We created one of our restaurants, we eventually did 3 of them, restaurants that became fully tech-enabled for the front of the house. There was no human interaction. You'd walk in and either order from your phone or from an iPad, and then the food was delivered to you through an animated cubby that was personalized with your name on it. It was revolutionary. Wow. And then we had this thought in late 2019 based on Lettuce's network of restaurants and people they knew, and Valor's network of restaurants and people they knew, and the fact that we had national distribution of our product. Why couldn't another restaurant sell our food out the back door on third-party delivery? We thought about the local coffee shop that only has 2 day parts, right? Breakfast and lunch. We thought about the ice cream store in Chicago that has 4 months of no one eating ice cream because it's too cold. We thought of hotels that had full room service staff, full kitchens, but no one eats in the hotel, so they're standing around. And we thought of the catering company that has a full kitchen but only puts out 1 order a night. And we could give all of these people more revenue and more profit and help them make money instead of just breaking even or losing money. So we built out online training materials, started talking to the third-party delivery providers, created a marketing plan, and launched with 1 location in January of 2020. Started getting data and learning what we were doing and correcting mistakes, talking to some operators. And then COVID hit. And from April 2020 till today, we've done over 600 locations across the country with a robust pipeline to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. And
well, you were a concept looking for a pandemic.
Right. You know, there's brains and there's luck. I don't ever want to joke about the pandemic. I mean, people got very ill, people lost people they knew, and I hate to say that we were fortunate to come out of it, but we created something that helped restaurants survive the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, and help people too, be delivered and having food in their homes.
Yeah, it wasn't just the restaurants, right? We had farmers still working, we had butchers still working, we had truck drivers delivering food. Like, we helped so many segments of the industry to keep surviving and going. And we found a way for restaurants to pay rent, to keep the lights on, to pay staff, to hire managers during their darkest days. We had a couple restaurants who told us point blank they would have locked up their doors and been closed if we weren't there for them. And we didn't create this for the pandemic. We didn't know about the pandemic in 2019, but we built it to help restaurants. And the team we went from 11 people in our home office pre-pandemic to we're at 28 now because of the growth that we've had. So we've created jobs, and everybody is focused and proud of the help that we've given to the industry.
What's the footprint now in terms of number of locations that are making your products?
We've launched 600 locations. We have about 25 locations in Canada. A
Sounds
month ago, we opened in Alaska.
wow.
We're ready to go to Mexico. We're ready to go to the UK, and we were talking to people in both of those countries, and we're now talking to the Netherlands and Belgium and France, and there's a lot of opportunity here for what we can do.
Awesome. A lot of fun. You're on a rocket. Well, how has your leadership style, evolved over time, Geoff?
Growing up in New York City, I move very fast, and I have zero patience. And I tell people all the time, whatever it is we're working on, we should be able to get it done in days.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
we do should take more than 3 days.
Right.
And my leadership style has changed a lot to, it's more of a coach and not a doer. For many years, I was the doer. Like, if you can't do it, get out of my way. I'll get it done myself. I can do it better than you. Just watch me, and then hopefully you'll learn how to do it.
All
And I think my leadership style got better was becoming a parent. A parent, having your own child teaches you patience.
Yep.
That 4-year-old is not going to know how to tie their shoe, no matter how many times you yell at them to tie their shoe.
Right.
And you have to be patient and teach and coach. And I think that was a big part of me being successful. I think that John with Valor, when Valor got involved, he's like, you have to hire a team.
Right.
And look, I've hired servers, I've hired bartenders, but I had to go out and hire a CFO and a head of business development and a head of marketing. Like, these are senior people
Right.
that I had to go out there and figure out how to hire and learn. And so my management style, my leadership style has gone from much less of doing to much more of communicating.
Mm.
And it has to be now, I have to be the visionary, I have to be the entrepreneur, and I have to be the goal setter, but I can't do the vision. I can't do the goals. I have to put some
Right.
trust in it. It's sort of like a baseball team, right? You want to be the pitcher because you want to strike everybody out. But the good coach says throw strikes because you have 8 other players out there who will make the play.
Right.
And
Right. Cool.
that's the difference.
Yeah.
And my original style is I would want to be the pitcher and just try to strike you out. And if you hit a home run off me, I'd be angry about it. I'd be
Right.
disappointed in myself. Now I'm trusting that, the players are going to make the play.
Yeah. What do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire, Geoff?
I got to connect with them.
Yeah.
Before anything else, I have to be able to connect with you. I have to
Right.
want to talk to you because
Right.
I don't want to have people in my office who I want to avoid.
That can be very uncomfortable.
Look, you laugh, but there are definitely, I've hired people. We've all hired the wrong people. And if I want to talk to you, if I want to stop by your desk, if I want you to walk into my office, then you're the person I want on my team.
That's right. Yeah.
It's gotten to the point now where I do the last interview. If you make it to me, I don't ask you if you know how to do our financials. I don't ask you how you hire people and train people. I'm under the assumption that my team has covered all of that stuff.
Right. Right.
My interview now is about culture. Are you a
Yeah.
culture fit to what I'm trying to do? Do I connect with you?
Right. Right. Very important.
Look, we're still small. We're 28 people in an office. So it's not
Yeah.
like I have 7,000 employees. I'm never going to see you again.
Right.
I
Right.
personally hire everybody because I will be interacting with you again.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important. Well, Geoff, we're just about out of time, but we always ask one last question of our CEO guests. And that's kind of what career and life advice would you give someone that maybe has their own eyes on a corner office someday?
I don't think there's one piece of advice you can give to anybody who wants to become a CEO. I think you have to work hard. And when I say, everyone says, oh, you have to work hard. No, if you want to lead a company, you have to work harder than anybody because nobody in the company will ever care about the company as much as you. That's the difference with the CEO. You have to care more than anybody. And it's not just about the company. The company is not just the widgets we sell. The company is the people that we hire and their development and the people that we service and their enjoyment of those widgets, whatever it may be,
Right.
right?
Right.
The success of others leads to your success. And in the younger days of mine, I was jealous of other people's success. I think the other piece of advice is you have to be passionate, but you can't mistake uh, uh, passion, or you can't cross wires of passion and, you know, attitude. You
Right.
have to lead. We have a saying that leaders lead, and you can't sit by and wait to be told what to do. If you
Yeah.
are a leader, step up and lead. Step up and do what has to be done, and make sure your people are successful, because their success will drive the business, which will let you keep leading them.
No question. Well, Geoff Alexander, President and CEO of Wow Bao and a managing partner at Let Us Entertain You, thank you so much for sharing your story into the corner office.
I appreciate your time, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.